Hello, my friends. I am back. It's day whatever. It's Tuesday. As you can see, I voted. It's election day. If you are in the States, I hope you voted too. And I did not get around to making the charts. I hosted book club last night and was a little busy with all that, getting ready to have everyone over. But I did find some time to do some knitting. And I really kind of need some therapeutic knitting right now, so this is as far as I've gotten. Let me get those. That's the provisional cast on that was sort of in the way. So here we go. Here it is. Check it out. I'll do it like this so you can sort of get an idea. This is, of course, the provisional cast on here. And then I did some short rows across this is the back. I've decided that the beginning of round will be in the center of the back of the neck. And so that's what I did. So I have short rows going back and forth across that point. And I think I did 6 or 8 short rows. I did about an inch worth. And I'm gonna see once I finish the last set of color work if that feels like enough to raise the back of the neck enough. Otherwise I can do another set of short rows underneath the color work, which will sort of shift the color work up a little and push it down in the front. And you can see my pine boughs. And I thought, I didn't think it all the way through. So I have goes like this, yes. So in my swatch, of course, I'm working on the same number of stitches all the way around. And what I realized is I didn't like this space here. It kind of makes an arrow and I wanted to offset it. Of course, the problem is we have an increase here. So, so they sort of, see, I wanted it to be like that. And they kind of are doing their own thing. And I've decided there's no way I can figure out how to make that work. I don't think it's possible. So I'm going to leave it as is. But that's one of those things, since I haven't designed a sweater like this, I had no idea that that was going to happen. I mean, if I had thought it through a little more, I'm sure I would have. But I was too excited to get to the color work to think it through. And so I'm about halfway. Let's see, what does my row marker say? I am just starting the 6th round of this 11 round piece of color work here at the top, and that'll be this yummy stuff. So it's on a lot of stitches. It's on 320 stitches. So each round takes quite a while, but that's okay because that's what I need right now. I need some therapeutic knitting, something to sort of distract me from the world. And I wanted to show you my floats. I'm pretty proud. I've been working hard to make sure that the stitches on the right needle that have just been knit are kind of loose and far apart, because that then when I gently pull that, I'm holding the contrast with my left hand, and so that's most of the floats that I'm concerned about are the contrast, the left, but they seem good and loose. I mean, we won't know really until it's blocked. But already I know it's better than blocking, because I don't know if you can sort of see, there's a slight ripple to the edge of this where I was kind of pulling it in further and being a little tighter with my gauge. But I think part of that is also working on the smaller circumference. So you can see the floats all sort of blend together. I have blocked my swatch I washed it and let it dry. And so I'm hoping that all of these they're kind of really bumpy, but this is a very woolly yarn, being that it is non-superwash, and I don't know that the woolen spun nature of it makes any difference. I think it's really about the fiber content, but as it's washed, those little scales in the wool start to hold on to each other. And of course, as it's worn, it'll get a little gently felted on the inside too. And that will help so that the floats don't snag. And I realize that's another reason why it's great that this is just gonna be in the yoke, because rather than the sleeves. If we're in the sleeves, I'd be worried about catching a ring or my watch or something on the floats as I'm putting on and taking off the sweater. But I don't think that will be as much of a problem because the color work will all be up in the yoke. And I think right now my plan is to finish this will be the last bit of color work, the flowery, I don't know what to call it. I'm calling it flowers right now, but I think once I get a name for this sweater, once it stops being just called yoke sweater, whatever this is will be called the name of the sweater in like the chart, because I give each chart a name. I prefer a name chart to chart A, chart B, chart C, because I think it's easier to, for memory purposes, it's easier to differentiate. The problem is, of course, right now I've got pine bough 1 and pine bough 2, and calling them left and right doesn't really necessarily make sense. So I don't know about that, but obviously that can come later in terms of naming convention kind of things. So that's where I am. I'm just starting round 6 of the motif that is my favorite, down here at the bottom. And so hopefully tomorrow I will have finished that and be getting on to the point where I can see if the yoke is deep enough, if I think it'll be high enough at the back, and getting ready perhaps to split, because once I'm done with the color work it'll go much faster, because I'm really fast with my master color, just plain old knitting around and around and around. So that should speed things up, and that and some waste yarn that will go all the way around me will allow me to try the yoke on and see if it is deep enough and big enough and all that stuff. Because certainly after the color work, the next increase is a little different, because I'm going to be adjusting for the gauge, because the gauge between the color work section and the stockinette section is different. That's just the nature of the beast. Color work like this, Fair Isle, the stitches tend to be more square. If you didn't know that, that is generally a fact. Well, we'll call it a fact. It's a fact for me. They're closer to square. My gauge is about 6.5 stitches and about 7 rows to the inch. And then my stockinette gauge is about 6 stitches to the inch, and it still seems to be about 7, but I am planning on working the rest of the sweater by measurement rather than by row gauge, by counting rows. So I'm less concerned after the color work about the height of my stitches. But generally in stockinette, stitches tend to be rectangular, and you need more rows to make an inch than you do stitches. Usually for stockinette, it's about 2 stitches to 3 rows, or 3 stitches to 4 rows is the way that usually goes. And so when you see something that says like pick up 3 stitches for every 4 rows when you're like picking up a button band for a cardigan, that is why. Because if you did it every row, your edge would flare, because you'd have too many stitches picked up for the number of rows in your piece. So that's the story from here today. I hope that was interesting and maybe a little informative. Maybe tomorrow I will have a proper chart for you. Maybe I'll give some thought to some name stuff too. So we'll see. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Thanks. Bye.